Today I'm installing a skid plate for my 2018 Rad Rover. I've taken the bike and put it upside down on some pads that I have for something else. So the Rad Rover is now in its upside down position. I will start cleaning the areas that are exposed right now that will be covered by the skid plate. Again, my 2018 Rad Rover has about 800 miles on it. Bike is kind of dirty from my last couple of rides, and I just noticed that the cap that protects the update sensor here has been exposed to dirt and grime. Hopefully the skid plate will help keep this connected and not come off. I may actually try to use something else there to help it can stay on, but I'm just going to wipe this down right now. And clean it up before I put the skid plate on. Obviously the skid plate's only going to protect the wires from getting hit. It's not going to keep any water or mud or anything from flying up in here if I get too deep in it. Sensor. So I'm wiping it up, and if I read correctly, the gentleman that developed this skid plate for the Rad Rover, and this is a 2018 again, it also protects the pace sensor over here right next to the front sprocket. Okay, now that I have this area pretty well wiped down and cleaned up, I am going to remove the two Allen screws up here. Now that I have the area cleaned up, I'm going to get out the Allen tool and remove these two bolts. These have never been out. In the entire time of me owning this bike, I've never used these. They are a little tight here. Now that I have these loose, I'm going to remove these two hex bolts and washers. And I'm going to line up and check out how this works. Now that I have the hex bolts out, I'm going to line this up. Okay, the directions are not to tighten these on all the way yet, so I'm just going to put them in for placement, and then I'm going to make sure that the wires are not being pinched by the plate. Okay, now that I have these loosely in, I'm going to make sure that we're not pinching any of the wires anywhere. That it's separated on both sides. guess the toughest wire to check right now is the sensor for the pace. It seems to be way out there on the side, but it's not being touched by either of the rubber spacers on the skid plate. Looks like all wires are clear on the rubber skid plate, so now I can place the zip ties on. Again, we're not tightening the zip ties down at this point. I'm just putting it on and then double checking that all our connections, all our wires are not being pinched. Okay, on this side over here, I see that the magnet sensor for the pace is not touched. I'm going to push that down a little bit and tighten it up. I'm going to do the same on this side. And no wires are being pinched underneath either. The two spacers are clear and the third spacer up here is clear. Now to tighten down the Allen bolts. Alright, we can see the spacer is clear, and the two Allen bolts up top have been tightened all the way down. And this is keeping the skid bar from touching. These two are not impeding any of the wires down here coming out of the frame or going to the magnetic. Alright, now we'll just trim up the zip ties and we should be ready to go. Alright, that concludes the installation for the 2018 Rad Rover skid plate.